Welcome to the program, friend. I want to talk with you today about spiritual calluses and the news. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance.
Welcome to the program, friend. By the way, I am playing a role in a movie this summer, and I have to have long hair and a beard. So I'm not playing Moses. Wouldn't that be cool if I could be like a Moses rock and roller? But I digress. Guns and Moses. So I am going to have this look on my face and on my head for the next few months, and it's going to get longer and longer. I apologize for any of you that are like, what's up with that, man? The guy looks freaky, crazy. I'm trying to look cool, and it's hard to do. All right. Oh, I want to talk to you for a moment about spiritual calluses. We've got Biden, who is announcing all of these executive orders to take away our Second Amendment. This horrifying thing what happened with the NFL player and suicide and murder. There's a lot of things that you can read about, watch about in the news that I don't feel like talking about today. Because there's something in my gut that I want to address regular viewers of this program and any of you that might be flipping through the dial and catching us, or the handful of you that watch this on YouTube. I'm a guitar player, and I have calluses on this hand, on these fingers. When I first started playing the guitar, to press down on a steel string would create blisters. Some people have gotten to the point where their fingers will even start to bleed a little bit. It's painful. So by repetition, a callus develops, and now when I press down on the strings of guitar, I don't even feel, there's no pain whatsoever, but the actual nerves start to wear out at the tip of the finger. People who cook and burn their hands a lot, they have that type of thing happen. Calluses are just, a part of life. Get them on your feet. It's just a part of who we are as human beings. The problem is a spiritual callus. So if you go like this and rub your hand for a while on your skin, it's going to heat up. After a while, it's going to start to get a rash or get agitated. It might create a blister. If you keep going back to it, doing it over and over, you will develop a callus. Many of us have spiritual calluses. I would venture to guess that most of us do. We have grown calloused, or another way to put it is our hearts have slowly become hardened to the unthinkable, grotesque, even demonic evils that have engulfed our country. Let me give you one really simple illustration. In 1946, or 1949, or 1956, or 1959, if somebody had found a house, a garage, with 2,000 aborted babies' remains, it would have been international news. People would have been sick to their stomach. Some people would have heard the news and vomited if the pictures were shown publicly, which would not even have been doable in those days. If the pictures were shown, people would have been incensed and outraged. There would have been memorial services. There would have been grieving and weeping and praying. And that happened in the last couple of years. When the abortionist from Fort Wayne, Indiana died, they found hundreds of aborted babies in his garage. A few years back, there was a container, the kind that you would see on a ship going across the ocean, that had 15,000 babies in it. 15,000. The sheer stench was unthinkable when they recovered these poor babies. The ACLU at that time fought tooth and nail to keep those babies from being buried in a cemetery. That's my memory of the story. There was long litigation. We've come to accept the fact that 3,000 babies a day meet a brutal, grisly end. So when an NFL player shoots innocent human being and then kills himself, it's big news, arguably so, because it's unusual, it's horrifying, you can't help but look. But if we walked along our day and saw littered about us the remains of aborted babies, human beings made in the image of God, well, if we walked along day after 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 week after year after decade, maybe we would get calloused. Maybe we have become calloused. The horror, the shock, the outrage, the sense of indignation that should accompany what is going on does not exist because we've gotten callous to it. And besides the offense, the neglect that it is to these victims, these poor children, it puts us in a place where the judgment of God is more likely. Because the Bible says, woe to those who do not grieve the ruin of Joseph. Joseph was an allusion to Israel. Woe to those who do not grieve. James said, be afflicted, mourn, and weep. In the book of Ezekiel, I believe it's chapter 9, don't hold me to that, God gave an instruction for the angel to go through the city and to mark everyone who sighed and cried, who wept, who mourned for the abominations that were happening in Israel. That was what God was looking for. Who's grieving? Who's sighing? Who's crying? God said, mark them. Put a mark on them. And then he told the angels, go kill everyone who doesn't have the mark. Go kill everyone who's not sighing and crying and grieving. Because it meant that those people who were not sighing and crying and grieving had become so accustomed to the evil that they were not resisting it. They were not praying against it. They were not sacrificing to stop it. They had become a part of the problem. I fear for us. I fear for us that our hearts are hard, our prayers are cold, to quote Keith Green. And if we're going to get this country back, there's going to have to be some type of revival that is not a happy-go-lucky revival, but it's a revival like in the days of Nehemiah or in the days of Ezra, where people tore their clothes, people grieved, people begged God for mercy. Because we are in a world of trouble, people. And the fact that we're so callous to the evils that are happening around us means that we're even in more trouble because we don't have the spiritual fiber and the spiritual passion that will be necessary to turn this thing around. I'll be right back. Welcome back, friend. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what's right in spite of your fears. Truth has within it the seeds of its own victory. Lies have within them the seeds of their own destruction. So, how do you get those two truths, those two axioms together? Let me give you one other axiom. It is easier to temper a bold man than it is to embolden a timid man. These three axioms are things that I have learned. These are sayings that I have created in my years of leadership and activism to train other men and women. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing what's right in spite of your fears. Truth has within it the seeds of its own victory. Lies have within them the seeds of their own destruction. And it is easier to temper a bold man than it is to embolden a timid man. These come together in what we refer to as the culture wars, the epic battle of good against evil, the struggle between the angelic and the demonic, if you will. And I'm saying that more in a picturesque manner. The struggle against the seed of the woman against the seed of the serpent. We are in an epic struggle, the whole human race is, of good against evil, of good people against evildoers, of those who uphold the laws of God and those who break them and promote rebellion against them. So here's the issue. Where are the bold? Where are those who have courage? They'll do what's right. They'll say what's right in spite of their fears. Where are those that will herald truth when truth is mocked, vilified, marginalized, and when the bearers of truth are even persecuted? There's people who are clamoring to be quiet. There's people who are struggling to be unseen and unheard. It's not much of a struggle, I admit. All you have to do is hold your tongue. When the emperor parades by and he's buck naked, you just pretend that he's wearing the most beautiful clothes you've ever seen. Just go along with it. Wow, that is some creative sewing. And then you have a little boy who, for whatever reason, is bold, who, for whatever reason, has courage. Maybe it's his youth. A little boy who sees the truth that the emperor is naked and says it. Look, Mommy, the emperor has no clothes. So if you look what's going on in the world today with, let's say, some really hostile Antifa or the core of Black Lives Matter, which is racist and Marxist and anti-family and in favor of debauched sexuality. Or if you look at the LGBTQY insane, perverse movement, you have people that are the activists in the vanguard of these various movements. They're full of courage. They have more courage for lies than the average Christian in America has for the truth. Their voices are being heard. Their playbook is working. They have become the tail that wags the dog. I believe the words of our Lord Jesus. He said, I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. I believe, I think the scriptures teach, that light is greater than darkness, that darkness cannot overcome light. Darkness is the absence of light. So I think that in a theological, ethical, societal, cultural battle, that if the righteous and the wicked meet, that the righteous will prevail because truth has within it the seeds of its own victory. Lies have within them the seeds of their own destruction. Honor, goodness, holiness, truth. These things will prevail against dishonor and debauchery and lies and immorality. But you must have people who have courage. You must have people who will say the truth publicly. What good is knowing the truth if we don't say it? Or what good is knowing the truth if we only say it when we're safe? If you look back over church history, look in the scriptures at various martyrs. Oh, what was the name of the saint? It's gonna come to me when I'm off the air. It was after a substantial part of the empire was, it's skipping off my brain. He was a monk who came to Rome and saw the games, the Roman gladiator games. Now, most of the empire had already converted to Christianity, but the games were still going on. And he saw this throng of people going into the Colosseum. And I've been to the Colosseum multiple times. And when he saw these two men out there trying to kill each other, he literally jumped in to the Colosseum and said, "In the name of Christ, forbear." He got between the men and stopped them from fighting. And some of the history says that one of the men stabbed him. Another one says that some of the crowd threw stones at him. Maybe both happened. Maybe one of them gave him a wound trying to get him out of the way, and then some of the people there started throwing rocks at him while he was on the ground. I don't know. The fruit of it is that the emperor heard what happened and shortly thereafter outlawed the gladiator games in the entire empire. Now, the games had been going on for hundreds of years, and what had happened? People were calloused. They were calloused to what was going on. And this man wasn't. He was shocked. He wasn't from Rome. He had never seen a spectacle like this, an evil spectacle like this. And he jumped in. I'll take a break. When I come back, I'll have his name. I can't believe it didn't come back into my head. Will you be like him? That's the question. Will I be like him? Don't go away. Welcome back, friend. His name was Telemachus. So in this particular website called Discerning History, it says, and I quote, he shoved his way to the edge of the arena and jumped into the midst where every eye could see him. He advanced the two gladiators who were engaged in mortal combat. In opposing himself between the combatants, he faced the crowd. Fearlessly, this hero raised his voice. "In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, King of kings and Lord of lords, I command these wicked games to cease. Do not requite God's mercy by shedding innocent blood." A shout of defiance met the voice of our hero. Pieces of fruit, stones, daggers, and other missiles were hurled down from the stands. One of the gladiators, expecting the applause of the crowd, stepped forward and rammed his battle axe into the skull of the man who dared interfere with Rome's favorite entertainment. As the hero sunk lifeless to the ground, the angry cries of the crowd died away into a profound silence in the arena. And then it says that, according to John Foxe, Foxe's Book of Martyrs, in his famous book, quote, "From the day Telemachus fell dead in the Colosseum, no other fight of gladiators was ever held there. Such was the legacy of a man who dared to jump over a wall and declare that an aspect of popular cultural entertainment was ungodly and unlawful." I love stories. This is true. I love reading books about great men and women of the past. Candles in the Dark, Amy Carmichael, her struggle against child prostitution in India was key inspiration for me in starting Operation Rescue. But as much as we love stories, and we should, and as much as we want to think, well, I would have done that too if I were there. All right. Will you raise up your voice at the business lunchroom, in the workplace, with family and friends, neighbors, in-laws? There's something romantic in us that wants to think that in the moments of key crisis, we would have stood. I would like to think that we would. But do we stand when the emperor's going by naked, and all we have to do is say, "He's naked"? And we don't risk what happened to Telemachus, getting killed. The truth is, in America, if you say the truth, what's the worst that's going to happen to you? Really, what's the worst that's going to happen to you? I'll be right back. Now, I know that I have issued kind of a big challenge here. I want to tell you a quick story in our closing moment together. Back in 1984, I was standing outside of an abortion clinic, and I saw a woman 50 yards away walking up, and I thought, oh, maybe she's coming to the doctor. I walked out to talk to her. I said, excuse me, are you by any chance going to the doctor? She started cursing at me, swearing at me, things I can't repeat on the air. And I said, oh, hit the jackpot here. I said, ma'am, I'm sorry. I know that this is uncomfortable. I'm just here to help. If there's anything I can do to help you, please let me. So as I'm talking, she's walking right to the door. And at the last second, she turned to me and said, did you say you were here to help me? I said, yes, I'll do anything I can. She said, I prayed this morning. God, if you don't want me to have this abortion, you've got to send someone to help me. I said, I'm the answer to your prayers. She turned around and sat down on the curb in front of the door. After a long series of events I don't have time to discuss, I was with her in the hospital when she gave birth. I adopted her baby girl. This is my daughter, who has had 4 children of her own. So sometimes we just have to risk someone yelling at us and swearing at us and cursing at us. But if we'll say the truth and we'll be courageous in just an itty-bitty way, we might save someone's life. We might save someone's soul. I mean, God saves their soul, but you understand what I'm saying. So in whatever place you find yourself where courage and truth are required, step up and do your Christian duty. See what God does. God bless you.